Hey everybody, it's Weather for Weather Geeks time here on the third day of April 2019. Third day of April, that's a date. You know, there's a lot of dates like this as we go through the course of the year that every meteorologist just knows what happened on that date when it's something big and important. And this is the 45th anniversary of the super outbreak of 1974, one of the most infamous, if not the most infamous, severe weather outbreaks in U.S. history. Occurred 45 years ago on this date. It continued into parts of the fourth day of April as well. And while there were no tornadoes in our region, in eastern Ohio, western PA, with that outbreak, this, of course, was a tremendous event for the lower Ohio River Valley down into parts of the Deep South. And closest to home, of course, one of the most famous tornadoes in this outbreak was the Xenia, Ohio tornado. Xenia, in case you don't know, is halfway roughly between Cincinnati and Columbus, kind of to the west of I-71. That was an F5 that devastated the town of Xenia back on this date in 1974. One of the most remarkable things about this entire outbreak was the number of F3s, F4s, even F5s that occurred. While there were some lower-end tornadoes mixed in as well, this outbreak had an enormous amount of very strong, violent tornadoes. That includes, of course, the Xenia tornado. Incidentally, I was born in Xenia, Ohio. I'm not this old, but I was born a few years later in Xenia, actually pretty close to the blizzard of '78, another famous landmark weather event across that part of Ohio especially. But I was not born yet during the super outbreak, but a lot of people who are a little older than me certainly remember this for the severe weather we did have in parts of our region, but thankfully for our local area, we did not have the devastating tornadoes that Southwest Ohio had back on this date 45 years ago. All right, our story today was, well, there were a couple of stories actually. It was sunny, it was nice, it was seasonable, and it was a little windy at times. We actually hit a peak gust in between hours of 38 miles per hour at the Youngstown Warren Airport earlier on, but these are the top of the hour gusts. They really started kicking in at 10, and over the last couple of hours, as is often the case in these kinds of situations, the wind has started to diminish as we've gone towards the last couple of hours of daylight. A few interesting things to show you on the radar and satellite this evening. The overall picture across the country is not particularly exciting when we take the broad view of things. Yes, we have a severe thunderstorm watch out here and a little rain up here, but there's no crazy features on the map this evening. But zooming in on a few locations, there are some interesting things going on. Let's start in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas, right? Sometimes that includes the hail, and we've got some real hailers going on across northern Texas this evening. When you see the purples and whites on our hail algorithm there, you know, some of these, even though this might be a little overdone, the diameter of some of these hailstones are probably at least 1.5 inches, 2 inches. That's going to leave a lot of dents in a lot of cars and siding and that sort of thing down in Texas. Let's hop closer to home here. The Cleveland Weather Service radar has been picking up on a plume of what we believe is smoke over Ontario. There's probably some sort of fire up here, and the radar beam capturing this is close enough to the Cleveland radar, just a hop, skip, and a jump across Lake Erie to catch the returns, the smoke and ash and things like that in the air being picked up by the radar out of Cleveland this evening. A little interesting here, this isn't a product you see very often in our part of the country. Eastern and central PA under a fire weather warning today, also known or previously known as a red flag warning. Low relative humidity, gusty winds, and relatively warmish temperatures, as well as a relative lack of rain recently. Now, they're not crazy dry or in a drought or anything to our east, but it has been a little bit dry lately. So the Weather Service did issue a fire weather warning from roughly Johnstown, Altoona State College on east over towards Philadelphia and New York City. All right, let's talk about our Thursday. Now, we've never really been advertising a ton of rain coming our way on Thursday, and I still think that's the case. It's going to try to sprinkle, touch of rain here and there. It's going to kind of look like it wants to rain most of the day, but the air down in the lower levels of the atmosphere is going to be pretty dry tomorrow. Just off the top of your screen, kind of behind our banner up here, there's an area of high pressure that will be feeding some low-level dry air down into the Mahoning and Shenango Valley. So this rain is going to have a hard time reaching the surface. If it does, it's one of those intermittent wiper situations at best. Just not going to see a lot of rain. By far and away, the better chance for rain is coming our way Thursday night and heading into Friday. Steadier rain, nothing crazy heavy or anything, but steadier rain does seem likely on Friday. This will try to taper off some in the afternoon, but we'll keep the rain chances elevated into the afternoon on Friday. Thankfully, we're getting all this out of the way in time for the start of the weekend. Now, unfortunately, we don't have a big bubble of high pressure overhead on Saturday, so I do think there'll be some cloudiness around on Saturday, particularly in the morning. We're hoping that strong April sun burns away some of these low-level stratocumulus and stratus clouds on Saturday, and it should be a pretty nice afternoon with temperatures in the lower 60s. There's definitely been a downward trend in our rain totals expected over the next couple of days. Generally, maybe a quarter to a third of an inch now expected. Last night when I showed you this graphic, the model average was about a half an inch. Now the model average is closer to a quarter of an inch, so we're not expecting any sort of huge impacts from the rain that's heading our way. Let's talk about the weekend a little bit more. Again, Saturday, no problem, hoping for some afternoon sun. Forecast is a little bit challenging on Sunday. I'm going to compare the GFS and European model here. This is the GFS, which has been pretty aggressive in not only clouding it up, but trying to bring some showers in by the end of the afternoon and early evening on Sunday. If the GFS has the right idea, we might have some raindrops to dodge before it gets dark on Sunday. Now, the European model has been quite a bit slower, and that trend continues tonight. It has not much more than maybe a last minute right before sunset kind of a shower with a higher chance off to our west. So we have a low-end chance of showers in our forecast for Sunday, but I think the vast majority of the weekend will be just fine. Long-range temperatures, temperatures peak this weekend and on Monday, but I think it's going to be pretty chilly compared to average middle of next week. Now, a chilly day as we go towards April 10th is in the lower 50s. We're not in winter anymore. So when I say it's going to be a chilly day, temperatures a handful of degrees below average, that still means we'll probably crack 50 a few times. And while it's not exactly a warm-looking pattern as we head towards mid-April, maybe a little less chilly and closer to average by about tax day coming up in just 12 days. So, April, I don't see a lot of signs of a blowtorch like, whoa, crazy spring weather here coming anytime real soon, but I also don't see it as abnormally cold, certainly not as cold as last April was. It may just end up being kind of a ho-hum April. Our forecast we did a couple of days ago showed warmer than average by a little bit, not a lot, a little bit. It ultimately may come out in the washes pretty close to average April. It's, we just haven't had many average months temperature-wise around here lately, and that's we're not alone on that. That's definitely a symptom of a changing climate, a lack of normalcy. Sometimes we have really cold months, sometimes we have really warm months, but we don't see as many months these days where temperatures are really close to average. They've been few and far between in the last handful of years. All right, that's a story for another day. This is Eric signing off on Weather for Weather Geeks tonight, and I'll see you back here on Thursday.